Romney's favor. We'll see where that goes after tonight, and how female voters, who are the final arbiters of electoral politics, quite honestly, they pretty much determine how the vote goes in any given household. They pretty much determine as a voting bloc, given their weighted percentage, how elections fare ultimately on election day. So that has never been lost on any of these campaigns, that particularly the Romney people, they had a female problem. And the discussion, whether it was Congressman Aiken or comments by Romney himself, particularly with respect to issues that are important for women, did not help. Somehow, Mitt Romney broke through that last couple of weeks, and we'll see whether it's sustainable. Number two, Hillary Clinton did what a good Secretary of State should do. She took the bullet for her boss. And I think a couple of things. One, I think it works to her advantage in doing so. Why? Because given the back and forth and the silence by the administration, quite frankly, of this issue, she comes out as the grown-up, in the sense that she's like, yeah, okay, he won't tell you, but I will, type of thing. And so I think that, from her standpoint, politically, it's helpful to her. For the administration, it still begs more questions than it answers necessarily. The timelines don't add up. The gap in knowledge doesn't make sense. You have the intelligence communities, you have the State Department, and you have independent sources on the ground saying one thing about what happened in the administration in what is now an 18-month gap, if you will, quiet, or at least denying what our eyes and ears and sources on the ground were telling us. They've got to reconcile that. You have the Vice President on the day of the debate saying that, well, we didn't know, no one told us, and earlier that day, which is why I don't know why no one communicated to the Vice President what was testified to earlier that day, by members of his administration saying, oh yes, we got all these requests for additional resources and support for personnel. So you have that conflict. Hillary stepping into that doesn't necessarily answer all of that. What it does is show her being the Secretary of State taking responsibility. People like her, they like that about her, so I think politically it works for her. And besides, it's the Clintons. And there's politics, and then there's what the Clintons do. And if I'm forced to pick, I'll take what the Clintons do, because their instincts and their political insights are second to none. So we'll start with some questions over here. Go back and forth. Yes, sir.
Hi, Jared Brew from New Orleans. I live in a state where unfortunately I have no campaign commercials because our vote doesn't matter. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Your vote does matter.
So let's go to
from Maryland.
I think a lot of Americans are probably getting to the serious side of thinking their vote doesn't matter. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Electoral College when we look at the fact that billions are being spent to persuade people in 8 states as to who they should vote for, when we could probably take those same undecideds to an ice cream store and they still couldn't make up their mind. It just seems like a personality type of thought. But your thoughts on the Electoral College, will it survive its constitutional mandate, or will we see Senate?
Well, I think your first part was to take it to an ice cream store. You got to get some good things in there.
That's right.
Ice cream store. Or get some good junk. First off, I think the Electoral College, I'm an old school guy, so, I consider myself a little bit of a constitutionalist, so I appreciate the whole electoral process. But it does say a lot about where we are as a nation, because people fundamentally don't understand how we elect the president of the United States. They fundamentally don't. It showed that in 2000, and nothing's changed since then. Picture this, folks. Let me just get your audience reaction to this idea. Okay, Election Day, 2012. Electoral College, Barack Obama was 269 electoral votes. Mitt Romney, 269 electoral votes.
Here we go again.
He gets thrown into the House of Representatives. What happens?
Romney.
Who wins?
Romney.
Who?
Romney.
Romney wins. How do you think America's going to react to that? And that's the problem. We fundamentally don't understand exactly how this process works, this electoral college process. With the Republicans in charge of the House, if the electoral vote is tied, and given the way some of the numbers are starting to shape up today, there's conversation now in Washington about this potentiality. I personally don't believe it. I think the president or Mitt Romney is going to win cleanly, but it does harken back to 2000, where you had one nominee win the popular vote decidedly, but did not secure the electoral college votes required to actually become president. We vote for men and women to go to their state capital at midnight on some night in January to cast a vote for us. We don't have direct election of the President of the United States in this country. Will we move towards that? Possibly. Down the road, way down the road. But there's going to have to be a body of evidence, I think, that's going to have to be laid out first for the country to fundamentally shift the way it elects the president. It doesn't say it won't happen. We saw with the U.S. Senators. U.S. Senators used to be appointed by their governors until the Constitution was amended. I believe it was the 23rd Amendment to the Constitution allows for the direct election by the state of their U.S. Senators. So it's not to say it won't happen, but the presidency is a very different kind of animal. And so I think a couple of things. One, let's educate ourselves about how we elect the President of the United States. Let's not get caught up in the whole electoral process and the emotions of that, and recognize that what we're doing is I'm electing you as an elector to go to Annapolis in January, and it's usually at midnight for some reason, to go cast these votes for me. That's how we do it here. I'm comfortable with that process. Look, if I want my candidate to win, I do what? I go out and I work for him. I go out and I push his message. If I'm the candidate, I go out and I sell myself to the voters. I have to make myself better than the other guy or gal I'm running against. If I don't do that, I lose.